How you guys feeling since Big Bear?
I feel fine.
Let's see. Yesterday was the first day in 7 days that I had worked out, so I feel like a fat piece of shit.
You get it. You work out.
Well, usually how you feel is how people will perceive you. So you're nailing it.
No, I miss Big Bear. Although I don't know. So the chains on the left tire, I couldn't the one of the hooks was like stuck up in the upper part of the wheel well, and it took me 20 to 25 minutes to get it off. And I was furious.
I got a secret to tell you, Bobby. We saw you when we drove by.
Did you really?
We didn't think you were having trouble.
You were just got there, but let's just say that if you were having trouble, we would have kept going anyways. So
perfect.
Yeah, so it was a good time. But everyone thought I was wrong, but guess what?
You didn't need them.
Didn't need them.
Well, if you would, okay, for instance, I needed them to get back to the house after dropping off the trash. I wouldn't have been able to make it back otherwise.
Oh, for sure. So yeah, you probably for sure needed them. But if you were a skilled driver, you probably wouldn't have.
Fair enough. That's a fair point.
All right, and with that, why don't we get going? Welcome to another week of NRDWave. This week, we're going to be talking about a couple different subjects, but I figure with Birds of Prey coming out, or it is already out, that we discuss the top 5 DCEU movies in our own opinions. What do you guys think about that?
Wait, I thought we were going to lie and pretend that this was done before Birds of Prey came out.
Yeah, but Jay said no, so here we are.
No.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
People will be wise to it. Our listeners aren't stupid. Unless they are, then we'll see. But
if they're listening to us, it's a good chance that they are.
Yeah. So we'll run through our top 5 of the best DCEU movies, and then after that, we'll talk about some of the best, quote unquote, best video game movies that have come out. And no, Bobby, Wreck-It Ralph does not count. So yeah, let's go from there. Where do you guys want to start? Oh, introduce yourselves, by the way.
My name is Jay, and I like to party.
Not all at once.
My name is Bobby, and I also like to party.
No, I like to party.
All right, you can party.
I'm the only one that parties, guys.
I definitely don't party. I don't know why I pretended that I do.
And who are you?
I'm Bobby, just in case you didn't notice. Most people probably don't. But I am Bobby, and welcome.
Nice to meet you, Bobby. And I'm Kevin. I'll be trying to keep us under time, which may be an issue, because we like to talk about this stuff. So let's get right into it, shall we? Who wants to start? What do you have for number 5 for best DCEU movies?
Who's going first?
Don't all start at once.
Bobby?
This is a conversation, guys.
I'm gonna defer to Jay on this one. I'm curious to see what his number 5 is.
Number 5, Shazam.
Ooh.
Is my number 5. Do you want to elaborate, or are we gonna just say them all?
Do whatever you want. This isn't.
It's a good start.
Okay. Shazam was an unexpected surprise for me. Obviously, like most surprises are unexpected. I was really surprised on how fun it was, and I didn't think I was gonna like the kid as an actor, and he seemed pretty good. He got some good acting chops for a kid, and honestly, when we first saw all the screenshot, the previews of the suits and stuff, it kind of looked cheesy with the padding. You could tell it was all padded muscle. It wasn't real muscle, but you kind of get over it while you're watching the movie, and it's just like I said, it's just fun. The villain was an okay villain. He wasn't anyone special, but it was a good start. I like to see where they go from here if they continue. Hopefully, Black Adam, when it's coming out, is going to be pretty awesome. We'll see.
What about you, Bobby? What do you have at 5?
I've been going back and forth a lot because I feel like there's like 3 or 4 movies I could put here. I think I'm going to go with one that's not good, but also not bad. I'm going with Justice League. It had a lot of potential. It had a lot of really good actors and a lot of really interesting characters, and they did nothing with almost all of them. But it also wasn't offensive in any way, and I guess it kept my attention throughout. It just, unfortunately, the DCEU doesn't have... I would say there's probably like 4 good movies in the DCEU. This one, obviously, like I said, not one of them, but it's like right below those 4. I almost put Suicide Squad, spoilers, but that movie was half good and half terrible, so I think it graded lower.
Well, being as Birds of Prey, none of us have seen that yet. I'm gonna assume that Suicide Squad is the worst movie in the DCEU. So I don't know why that was almost in your 5.
Well, it's because like I said, half good, half terrible. So it's like I really enjoy the chemistry between the characters, but yeah.
I mean, it's not even on your list, so I don't know why I'm debating this. But the bad stuff is really, really bad. It's like basement level stuff, you know. My number 5, I have Batman v Superman. This movie kind of has a similar thing that how you describe Suicide Squad, and being that there's some good stuff and some bad stuff. I think that the good stuff is really, really cool, even though it is few and far between, like the actual fight between Batman versus Superman. There was some cool stuff that they did to introduce Wonder Woman, some cool stuff that they did to kind of world build, but there's just a lot of weird stuff. Like Lex Luthor was really, really bad. I think acted and written.
You mean the Riddler?
Yeah, essentially he's some sort of weird bastardization of the Riddler and Lex Luthor combined. There's some plot hole stuff, like the fact that Superman is able to find Lois Lane somewhere in the middle of the desert but can't find his mom in Metropolis or Gotham, which is right next door. Very, very weird stuff like that. So, but like I said, there's a lot of really great stuff. Like the visuals are fantastic. I think that that's probably Zack Snyder's main strength, is his ability to make stuff look cool. And as dumb as that sounds, it just looks cool. But as a storyteller, that's his weakness. But yeah, Jay, I don't mind your pick being there. I really enjoyed Shazam as well. I think that the comedy was different for DC, which was a huge, it was fresh.
Yeah, it wasn't dark like a lot of their where they were going with the rest of
that,
the
which I think is a great turn for them, because they'd gone so dark, they needed something to pull them back into the light.
Right.
Well, but I've always liked that about DC as far as a contrast, to MCU.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. So
everybody needs to be quippy. I agree for sure on that.
I think that there needs to be a difference between them and Marvel. Like, they just can't be Marvel. It wouldn't make sense. So that making them darker is a position that I think that they should normally take, but that doesn't mean it needs to be devoid of any humor at all. So yeah, I think Shazam was a pretty good balance. Maybe at times it was actually kind of jarring. Like you would have the comedic stylings of Zachary Levi, and then you have Mark Strong's character letting out these demon monsters and eating a boardroom full of people. It was
that was kind of
at least they didn't show it. But
true.
Yeah, it definitely still happened.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think that's actually a good segue to my number 4, which was Shazam. I really respected that movie for what it did, and in a time where this was after Justice League, right? So everyone was really, really like down on the DCEU, and I think this kind of made people a little bit more hopeful for the future.
I think it brought some people back.
Yeah, I think Aquaman was actually before this one, but it was a good trend. They were basically 2 for 2. So what'd you have for 4, Bobby?
I actually had Batman versus Superman. This is like the type of thing, like I tend to look for the better in movies than the bad movies. So it's like I actually almost put the second, but I know it has its warts, so it couldn't really go that high. I think this is the best Batman we've ever seen. Christian Bale was amazing, but I think Ben Affleck, I loved his dark Batman. I loved like the fact that he clearly had some demons, and I feel like Superman was really good. I feel like this Superman in this universe has been really good. Just not necessarily great, but I don't think he's been as bad. Like, people are really down on him because of Man of Steel and how he wasn't hopeful and all that stuff. I don't think that mattered. I think we've still gotten a very good Superman out of him. I think the story was a good story. It just had a lot of, I don't even know if you would call it fluff. You had a lot of like bad stuff in there that just kind of dragged it down.
That was I think that was tied to a lot of the world building that they were trying to do, because they're trying to catch up to Marvel at this point. They saw the Avengers and they're like, oh, we got to create this whole universe now. And
they're trying to sprint.
Exactly. It was incredibly rushed, and that's why all that stuff, especially worst part of the movie, in my opinion, is the emails that Bruce Wayne sends Wonder Woman, and he's like, oh, look, here's the Justice League. Like, did Lex Luthor have his graphic designer just make up some logos for these guys he doesn't know about?
They must have been really confused. Like, okay, I guess I'll make up some stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure why.
I guess this guy's
adopt those names too.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
Wonder Woman. I guess I'm Aquaman.
Like,
Yeah.
hey, that really works, doesn't it?
That guy came in like a flash. Get it? Huh?
Oh.
Bam! Lightning bolt. That's the logo.
Look how cool my logo is. I'm gonna do that.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's basically that was the low point of the movie, in my opinion. It just felt so shoehorned, and it was all in an attempt to catch up to Marvel.
Right.
But yeah, that's my thoughts on that. What do you have for 4J?
Number 4 for me is Aquaman.
Okay,
I'm gonna get some guff from it because I
get that guff.
Get the guff. Give me all the guff.
I'll give you some guff.
I think mostly because the movies that I have ranked higher, I think are more like connect with me on a more personal level, and I guess maybe out of expectation or just, just being more of a fan of the other characters. But Jason Momoa was great as Aquaman. You get to see more of his, I guess, more natural humor in this. In Justice League, he was kind of silly, like talking like a bro or a surfer bro.
Yeah.
And it just didn't seem natural. But this one, he seemed like more himself. He really got to see the extent of his powers, basically fighting someone along the same lines as him. In Justice League, he's fighting everyone was so much stronger than him. Just seemed like it was kind of pointless to have him there. And then like the visuals of this movie are outstanding. I know Kevin's talked about it before. The movie is so beautiful. It's super colorful.
Yeah. As someone who's obsessed with RGB, this movie is basically RGB.
Yeah. Would you say it's like either the Guardians or I guess maybe even like the Ragnarok of the DCEU?
In terms of color palette, I'd say yeah, it's close. But in terms of story and like humor, no, not even close.
No.
But yeah, in terms of color palette, for sure, it's definitely an exciting movie to look at.
Yeah. And then Amber Heard was good as what's her face too.
Yeah, but she's canceled, so we can't talk about her anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's actually my number 3. I think that we're kind of we're almost going on a stepladder here.
Just depends on where number 1 goes, I guess, huh?
Maybe.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
Yeah. So.
One more thing, I did think Nicole Kidman was kind of an odd fit for that role.
She was a little wooden.
Yeah, which I think is pretty wooden in a lot of her recent movies, I guess. I don't know. She's just getting paid a bunch of money to be in a comic book movie, so that's probably why.
She looked good, though.
Yeah, she did. She did.
Her white costume was pretty cool.
I like the church ride, and it was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
All right, that's
it for me. So...
Okay, bye, Jay. Jay's stepping out. See
bye,
ya.
Jay.
The door closes.
My number 3 was Shazam. I didn't come into the movie with any real expectations, although I really like Zachary Levi. Like, Chuck is one of my favorite shows. And when they picked him to be Shazam, I was cautiously optimistic. And he knocked it out of the park. I think him and the kid actors did amazing jobs. I think if I were to become a superhero as a kid, that's how I would have acted. I think they pulled it off perfectly. It was a fun movie. Like, it had its dark moments, but I had so much fun watching that. It was absolutely the most fun of any DCEU movie I've seen.
Yeah. I only had a problem really with the very end of the movie where it didn't make a lot of sense for all the rest of the family to have, to get the powers and then know how to use them immediately. I also felt like
it took him forever.
Yeah, exactly. I also felt like it was a little bit cheesy just having everyone get powers. Like, where do you go from here, kind of thing, in terms of for a sequel. But yeah, minor gripe with that because it was a fun movie for sure.
I think that's actually true to the comic books. I think there is some version of the comics where Shazam is built up of 7 different kids.
That's in an alternate universe.
Oh, okay.
But
so
there is
kind of just merging the universes.
But very early on Captain Marvel at the time was his character's name. But very early on, his whole family did have powers. But it just seems like for a movie universe, what are they going to do for the next? They're going to have to take powers away from somebody.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But minor gripe. Yes, I already said my number 3. What'd you have 3, Jay?
My number 3 is Dawn of Justice, Batman versus Superman. For me, I know
wow.
I have a lot. There's a lot of issues.
I'm actually
with the movie,
surprised.
Obviously.
Yeah, me too.
Like, you think it'd be higher or lower on my list?
I thought it'd be lower. I didn't think you liked this movie that much.
I really enjoyed this movie. I think it lived up to a lot of the hype for me, except for obviously the glaring facts as Lex Luthor. Jesse Eisenman is horrible, horrible addition to that movie.
Eisenberg.
Eisenberg.
Eisman, I like it.
You mean the host of Wipeout on NBC?
Yeah, that one. That's
8 o'clock Friday night.
Yeah. Wow.
Is that
So
a guy?
I know.
Is that a guy? I hope
person.
that's a guy.
I have no idea. Is Wipeout still on?
I don't know. I really don't know. We're obviously very current. We're rating DCEU movies and haven't seen the newest one.
Yeah. I mean, we're probably behind. I don't even know the actors, and I don't even know the comics that well. Where was I? God dang it.
Sorry to
Lost
interrupt.
my train of thought.
Your train of thought?
My train of thought. My thought train has derailed. I
All
was
right.
talking about how much I hate.
What was your favorite part of the movie? I'm curious.
My favorite part of the movie is we get to see Batman just be what Batman should be, I believe. I think Ben Affleck was amazing as Bruce Wayne, and then even better as Batman. He's just big, bulky, comic book style. I feel like, obviously Christian Bale's Batman's, they're gonna. It's hard to compare the two because they're almost two different characters.
Mm-hmm.
But he was more like a ninja kind of style, as far as Ben Affleck's just a brawler.
Well, and
Almost.
it's like that was what was needed to fight Superman, like this big, gigantic, figure.
And you can
So I definitely get it.
Christian Bale going up against Henry Cavill. It's just no contest.
Absolutely not. No.
And then also you get to see this second movie. You get to see more of Henry Cavill as Superman. I think he's probably the greatest casting for that character ever.
Hello, Dean Cain.
There's been some really good ones too, like who have looked the part. So
Yeah.
that's high praise.
Well,
not saying
Brandon
the other
Routh
ones
looked just like Christopher Reeve, so it was like,
He did.
but yeah,
I'm not saying that the other ones were bad.
of course, yeah. I think Henry Cavill is fantastic, and I hope that he continues to do it. That's still unfortunately in the air, but yeah. Did you have more, Jay?
I mean, just obviously going back to the plot holes, obviously that Kevin's already spoken about. But I mean, just as far as visually, it was pretty awesome thing to experience for me. It was really enjoyable, and I mean, I know I'm more forgiving with movies than some of you guys, especially Kevin.
What the fuck? Why are you throwing me under the bus, man?
It's very true.
You know what? Now BVS is off my list. Thanks, Jay. I like that movie, Jay. Damn it. Best scene in the movie,
I'm not
though,
saying you didn't like that movie. I'm just saying.
obviously, is when
I
Batman takes
understand.
on other people, right?
Yeah,
in the
that's
garage,
amazing.
right? Or the warehouse?
I'll do it.
Oh, my
I'll
God.
shoot.
Yeah.
That scene is one of the best scenes in any action movie I've ever seen.
It's really
It's
great.
just badass as hell.
Yeah.
Every one of those guys is either half dead or dead.
They're paralyzed for sure.
Well, that's Batman's MO. He just cripples everyone and
Yeah.
burdens them with lifetime of medical fees.
He doesn't show mercy.
Exactly.
Mercy is death.
Maybe they have free healthcare in Gotham. Who knows? That's why it's a shithole.
Maybe it's on the board. Maybe it's actually in Canada, and
Yeah.
Metropolis is in America.
Right. So so mine was 3. My 3 was Aquaman. I mentioned that earlier. Like Jay said, it's a gorgeous movie, and I think it actually has a pretty cool story, and I think Patrick Wilson is a fantastic villain in this movie. I'll try not to spoil too much of it for you, Bobby, but you really should see it. It's fantastic. It's just like lighthearted fun, and it's not too heavy, kind of like how we were talking about Shazam, but unlike Shazam, it has a very even tone. It doesn't seem like it's bouncing around from scary to funny over and over again. Not that it was like scary for me, but if you imagine it as a younger kid and you're like, oh my god, why is this has a weird tone, but Aquaman is very very even, and it makes a lot more sense. I think honestly the visuals are probably what did it for me on this one. There's a couple of really outstanding action scenes, like the climax of the movie where there's this big battle between multiple armies was really, really cool and well done. There's a really cool chase scene, and it really brings back the director's experience with Fast and Furious. It had that kind of the good Fast and Furious movies had that same tone.
Right.
So really cool. I think the villains were interesting. yeah, I actually really like it. If these other two movies didn't exist, this would obviously be my number one. Um, so yeah, anybody have anything else to say about that?
See, I think I know your order for the rest of these, but I'm very curious to see what they actually are. So I will watch Aquaman one day. It just kind of got away from me, and I just never got the chance to watch it. I don't know really why, but I will one day. But
I'm sure they'll appreciate that.
I'm sure they will.
Use that money.
All right, Jay, what do you have it to?
Number two, I have Wonder Woman at number two. This is a tight spot for 1 and 2, but
How
two tight
dare
race for
you.
me. But Wonder Woman was again visually amazing, even though it's not super colorful. It's a little more drab, obviously because of the era and where it took place. But there's our scenes where it's pretty amazing. When they're on Themyscira, it's beautiful, and it's almost you get that cool contrast even in the movie with Themyscira. This beautiful world, and then you go into Earth where they're not supposed to even tread foot, and it's just dark and gloom and violent, and everyone is at war. Everything is just all hate, and apparently Ares is the cause of all of it. But I mean, that's I think what was weakest for me as the villain, Ares. It was just kind of we talked about like a shoe in. What do we do for a villain? We have all this build up. Let's just use this mythical god that had, I guess he had some influence in the comic, but I feel like he didn't really fit in the universe. I mean, if they had mentioned maybe even like Steppenwolf even in there, or Darkseid, kind of keep continuity together, that would have been pretty awesome.
Well, I actually have Wonder Woman number 2 as well. Ares is
both dead to me.
Ares is the reason it's not number 1, because I thought that movie was great up until maybe not even just the third act, but like halfway into the third act. If Ares had just been talked about, but he actually wasn't in the movie, and then she realized that people can just be bad without Ares making them bad, I thought that movie would have been by far the best DCEU movie.
Yeah, the fact that Ares exists at all kind of negates the whole theme of the movie. I think that he should exist in universe for sure, but I think he probably should have been saved for another movie.
They could have made him the villain of the next one easily.
I feel like he was,
or
he should have
Justice
been
League
bigger.
even.
He should have been bigger than what he was. He should have been have more of an influence on everything. I mean, obviously he had a huge influence, but I feel like he should have been, more of a godlike villain. And I don't think he was. I think he was kind of robbed.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, did you think that he needed to be, more like Ares the whole time instead of just the very end?
I mean, I like twists in movies, but I feel like this twist was really unearned, and like I just feel like the fight that they had was just a gray, a bunch of gray, which has been the trend in a lot of like big fights recently, like the last 5 to 10 years. It was boring, and I don't feel like the actor. I like the actor, but I don't feel like he fit in that role either.
Yeah, well, he fit perfectly as the guy, the politician.
Guy,
yeah,
Sir Patrick.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was great as Sir Patrick, but not as Ares.
Yeah,
true. Yeah, well, it's probably no secret that Wonder Woman is my number 1. But just to say a few things about it, I think it. Despite the message kind of being undercut at the end, I think it has the most meaningful message of any of these movies. In turn, that sometimes people are just bad, and you just kind of have to accept it, and you can't let it hold you back. You have to keep moving on.
Right.
And
even if it was undercut.
Exactly, but it can still kind of be explained away a little bit still. But for 90% of the movie, that's what they're trying to say. And then I think the love story between Steve Trevor and Diana is really heartwarming, and it feels authentic, in my opinion. And spoiler alert for a movie that's 5 years old: if you when Steve Trevor dies, you actually feel it. I actually felt it.
That was an emotional scene. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but like you guys said, the end of the movie, the final scene, it just falls back into the trap that a lot of these movies fall into, where it's just a big CGI fest, and I don't think it really showcases her powers that well either. Like when she goes Super Saiyan and then starts like spinning around, and it's like she's ice skating kind of thing, and killing all those Nazi soldiers without even touching some of them. Or not Nazis, sorry, German soldiers.
They're pre-Nazis.
It felt very disjointed from what we had seen right before that, and I guess that was to communicate the fact that she's now unleashed. But it was a little jarring. But either way, it's my number one movie. So
the first, like I said, more than 2/3 of that movie, like even 3/4 of that movie is really good, like great even. I enjoyed it so much. I like when it's on TV, I'll watch it and like I'll sit through the end, but it's like it's still so much fun to watch. She is so charming. Like Kevin, I know you've been in love with her for years now.
Yeah, she never answers any of my letters. It's really horrible.
That's very rude. That's very rude.
But yeah,
did you get a letter from her saying, "Hey, stop sending me"?
It was a cease and desist. Yeah, of course.
It was from a lawyer, actually.
Yeah, but that won't stop me from using pen names. But so yeah, like that's one of the things that I was gonna say too. Is when she was first cast for this role, I was like, "What? She's like 90 pounds. Like
I wanted Gina Carano.
Yeah, well, Gal Gadot turns out to be a much better actress than Gina Carano, but the body type is just she would have been really good. But she does bulk up for this movie, and she probably put on like 25 pounds at least. And she looks the part. As soon as I saw set photos of her in the armor, I was sold.
Oh yeah, it was a night and day difference between when she was in Fast and Furious. And
she was just like so skinny for that movie. I just couldn't imagine her being like or having any muscle and like appearing to be strong. But like what she did, like putting on like all that muscle, it was pretty impressive.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I already said my number one, and I imagine that both of you guys are gonna have the same movie as my number two. So what'd you guys have?
Well, I mean, Man of Steel. I actually thought Man of Steel would be your number one, but I guess your love of Gal Gadot really just pushed over the edge.
Well, I love Shotgun Arms Henry Cavill as well. So what do you want from me, Bobby? You're gonna make me choose?
It's
because I already did.
Yes, I mean, you made the wrong choice. I mean, I feel like Man of Steel is the best because I think from start to finish that movie is, let's say, very good, not necessarily great, but very good. It doesn't have any bad points, in my opinion.
Yeah. What about you, Jay?
Mine is also Man of Steel. It's the last Superman iteration of Superman we had before this was obviously Brandon Routh, and he was kind of really a weak performance, weak writing of a movie, just it's weak all around. And then we get Henry Cavill and his big muscular back and pecs, and he's a perfect Superman. And I love the movie. It's the one that I can watch over and over again. If I go back, I look at Wonder Woman. Yeah, I mean, I'll watch it again, but the rewatchability there for me just isn't there. And then it's just like he's the key character. He's the one that holds the whole universe together. I can
see that.
And I just think he's, obviously he's the first of the Justice League. Well, I guess you could argue Batman might be, but I think they just did such a good job with telling his story. Even though they didn't really rehash it completely because we hadn't gotten it so many times before. We just see glimpses of his past. And then I think, obviously Russell Crowe was amazing as Jor-El. And I think the casting for the whole movie was great. I think maybe Amy Adams is the weakest casting.
She's still pretty good, but,
She's still pretty
nothing
good.
special in it, I would say.
Yeah. But, I mean, I think Diane Lane was pretty awesome as his mom. Michael Shannon was a great General Zod because I think you kind of get that narcissistic kind of feel from Michael Shannon. I mean, if you've watched some of his other movies, too, he's got that kind of centerist kind of thing. If you watch Bug, he's
scary. Like
scary,
he pulls off like a realistic, scary person.
He's very menacing.
Yeah, he really is. And I don't know if it's his voice or just his demeanor or his features. I think it's just a combination of all. I think he's just really capable. Yeah,
he's the best DCEU villain. I think, without a question. I think he is just. Like I think he.
What about Steppenwolf, Bobby?
Oh well, obviously not Steppenwolf.
You mean you don't want a blob of gray, an unfinished rendering of a character as your villain?
I think.
Jeez. Ronan from Guardians of the Galaxy.
I think your bar is too high.
He was better than Steppenwolf.
Well, yeah, because he was an actual
Patrick
thing.
Wilson was up there though too. Patrick Wilson was up there.
Yeah, Patrick Wilson is really good.
I think if you feel, but you can connect more with Patrick Wilson. He's more of person, like on a human level, obviously.
Well, I love
Yeah.
Patrick Wilson. Like in what was it, the Losers, or no, the A-Team. Sorry,
Yeah.
very similar movies.
Yeah.
The A-Team. He's the best part of that movie, and he's just he's got so much charisma. I'm really excited to see it because of him specifically.
Yeah, well, they really do a good job of humanizing him in this movie, or in Aquaman, in terms of making him seem like his pride controls him. Whereas with Zod, Zod is interesting too because he's kind of driven by a duty to preserve his people, and he does it to a fault, which is obviously genocide. But yeah, like when you first see, which is a little bit of a strange scene in the movie where it's kind of like a hallucination where Superman starts like falling through the skulls or whatever.
Yeah.
Just like seeing that vision of what it's going to take to rebuild Krypton, and the way that Zod's presenting it is if it's like, oh, it's this great thing. Your people are going to be back. You're the key. You're the
Well,
key.
in his mind, it is a great thing.
Exactly. It's all about perception. One of the other cool things that I really liked about Zod too is when they're fighting through Metropolis, which is a controversial scene for sure because Superman does absolutely nothing to save anybody. But when he finally learns to fly, Zod does, and he's like, and you can tell that Superman's kind of like, oh no, how do you figure that out so quick? And he's like, I'm a trained fighter. Like this is what
there was
I
an
do.
Explanation. It wasn't like Clark grew up in a Smallville. Obviously,
Exactly.
He lives on a farm.
He wasn't
didn't
trained.
have any necessary. There was no training. There was no. He wasn't supposed to fight. He was obviously, for how strong he wasn't supposed to fight people. So he's kind of held back. He didn't have that combat experience.
Right.
Obviously.
Right.
And just tapping your full potential deep down.
I think that for me, I have this at 2 instead of number 1, like you guys have, is more because of the faithfulness to the comic book character in terms of tone, because it doesn't have a lot of hope in it, where like that's kind of what Superman is. But I get what they were going for on this because it was kind of his first adventure, and probably the biggest gripe that fans have with this movie is the fact that Superman kills Zod. I think it's necessary to drive the character. Unfortunately, they didn't really do much with it in future movies. So
yeah, it's true. But
kind of a bummer.
By the end of Man of Steel, you can see the hope that he has and that he learned what it is to be Superman.
Right.
You can see that like everything that happened in that movie taught him what he needs to do.
Essentially, he made a mistake that he was going to attempt to learn from, and that's essentially the whole point of that ending. And but then you get to Batman vs Superman, and he's ready to kill Batman. So it's like,
well, he tried to stop him a few times. He definitely did.
True, but basically, as soon as Lex Luthor was like, "I have your mom," he's like, "Oh, Batman's a dead man." He was very easily corrupted, which was one of my biggest problems with BVS as well. Is just
I don't know if I would agree with that. Like he showed up and he still didn't want to fight Batman, even when he knew his mom was in trouble.
Here's a reenactment. Clark, I need to tell you something. The guns pop out and start shooting him.
Yeah.
Clark, I need to tell you something. The sound waves hit him, and then that was it. He tried twice, and then he just went on and started fighting him. So it was very. I think Batman's motivation.
Bruce, I'm trying to tell you something.
Did I say Clark?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, sorry, Bruce. Yeah.
Okay.
So Bruce Wayne's motivation is it makes total sense. Absolutely, 100% airtight. Superman's is incredibly weak, unfortunately, and I think that would have made things a lot better if they somehow made it more convincing why Superman felt like he needed to stop this guy, without it being, I have your mom. Oh, but I'm Superman. I can just hear where she is.
But I mean, they were building to it though, with like him wanting to take, like, he wanted to write pieces in the newspaper about Batman. Like he wanted to do more. It's just like he just hadn't been able to by that time. And then he stopped him in that scene where he just stood there and let the Batmobile crush around him. That scene was awesome, by the way.
I don't think when you go talking about how he wanted to write articles about Batman, I think it was kind of because he saw like maybe Batman was like the complete opposite of him.
Yeah, it should have been an idealistic difference. I think Batman's, essentially his xenophobia of an all-powerful alien coming to Earth is enough of a motivation for him. But I think Superman has to look at Batman as an idealistic threat on how you fight crime.
I think they portrayed that because, like,
I don't think they did.
He was leaving the markings, and then that got some people in prison killed. Of course, that was Lex Luthor doing that and making it seem like it was Batman, but it was still something that he didn't like that Batman was doing, and I feel like they did portray it pretty well.
Well, Agree to disagree. But yeah, I think that anybody else have anything to say about these movies? I think we kind of covered them pretty well. We talked about not only our rankings, but what we think is the best villain, some issues we had with each of these movies. Anything else to add?
I just want to add how we were robbed with Justice League.
Yeah, that movie should have been so much better.
You look at these movies, and we have at least one of the main, one each of the main players, and these are all good movies. Like Wonder Woman's a good movie, Man of Steel's a good movie, Aquaman's a good movie, even Shazam if you wanted to throw him in there. Mm-hmm. But what happened? I think it has to do with the behind the scenes drama with Zack Snyder and bringing on Joss Whedon to whatever happened there. We may never know, but I will say, bring on the Snyder cut. I would love to see it.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Well, the Snyder cut is a must, but we need more Flash. Like, if we don't get any more of this universe's Flash, that's a shame. I think they are working on Flashpoint, but I don't know if that's actually confirmed or not. So I really hope it is.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, I know I argued before in past discussions that I thought Flash was going to be the best thing about Justice League, and I still think he was amazing.
Oh, he was. I would agree at this point. Yeah.
But I think I got majority of my fill from him in that movie.
Really?
I kind of agree.
To see, more of everyone else.
I've seen Justice League probably, I don't know, 5 times, maybe 6, and he gets old pretty quick. He got old for me on the second viewing. That doesn't mean that he wouldn't be better written by somebody else, because this script was, directed by Zack Snyder, who we've already talked about isn't very good at telling a story. So, we'll see how other directors handle him. But his power set and the way that they've depicted it in this universe with like the lightning that surrounds him kind of thing, and then there's like almost like a heat wave that leaves or that remains when he leaves. Is really cool. So I'd love to see more of that. So I agree. Bring more Flash. I think that covers that one. Let's move on to our video game movie discussions.
All right, this is the fun one right here.
This subject I think might go pretty quick because all these movies are ass. So let's run through these real quick. Just list them off and then we'll wrap it up. No, I'm just kidding. All right, who wants to go first?
I'll take it. It's me, Jay. I'm taking it.
Okay, Jay, run with it.
My first one is going to be, I'm going to get a lot of guff for this one again.
More guff?
I'm just taking all the guff.
Jay, how much guff can you take?
I don't know. How much guff is there on the internet?
Yeah, but you have broad shoulders, so
I
know you can take it. Man, dude.
I think this one ranks so high because of the actor in it. So for me, it's Hitman. I love Timothy Olyphant.
He's great.
I think this is before his Justified days, but this is after, obviously, Deadwood, and so I think he portrayed it pretty well, much better than the Hitman Agent 47. The story is really weak, though. I just feel that's going to be the case for most of these video game movies.
Yeah,
though,
absolutely. I think we might get a little repetitive with that point.
Yeah, that's something you just have to look back, and I think for me, as far as I've had a lot of fun playing the Hitman games, running around and putting on different disguises and end up failing a mission because you made too much noise, then you end up killing everybody in the whole building.
Scorched earth.
But I mean, I think it's pretty much scorched earth. That's exactly right. So for me, it's more nostalgia, I guess, as far as these rankings go. So that's number 5 for me.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember anything about that movie. I saw it one time when it first came out, and that was that. Was the girl? Was it Olga Kurylenko? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was actually just thinking that. I'm like, wait,
I remember
Olga
something.
Kurylenko in that movie?
Yeah. So you're talking about the one with Marky Mark, right? Just kidding.
Exactly.
It's funny that you say that because for number 5 for me, I've got Max Payne, which also has Olga Kurylenko.
Wow. What a coincidence.
Yeah. It's funny because all her characters are pretty much the same, like in Quantum of Solace.
Quantum of Solace, yeah. I don't think she plays a different character.
No.
I think she's just one character in every movie she's ever been in.
Yeah.
It's like, I remember seeing that movie. I loved playing the video game, like the original Max Payne video game. I had so much fun playing that game. Like, it was like really dark and like, just like he was basically going insane. And they actually portrayed that pretty well in the movie, I feel like. Mark Wahlberg wasn't good, but also wasn't bad. That's a theme. Mila Kunis, this is actually the first time where I thought she was anything more than just some that '70s show actress. I like it's actually I feel like where she started her descent into being an actual actress or ascent. Sorry,
She's descending.
she's descending.
Oh man,
you know,
poor
it's
girl.
Descending.
It wasn't like the story was okay. It's like kind of by the numbers revenge flick. But it had some very fun or very like good action moments. And I think those really stuck with me.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember absolutely hating this freaking movie when it came out. I'm gonna sound like a hater for the rest of this list, because I remember seeing the trailer for that and like the slow motion when he's like jumping backwards and shooting the shotgun. I was like, oh man, I love the Matrix. This is gonna be sick. And then remember just being bored out of my mind with this freaking movie. I actually tried to watch it again recently. It was on TNT or something, and I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. so I'm very surprised to see that on your top 5.
I did like the concept of the drugs being a huge thing in it. I mean, that's very video game-ish.
Kind of blending the supernatural with the reality. It's
right.
Cool. Yeah. I think
Not
that
cool enough though.
I might, not cool enough. But I think that you guys may have a problem with my position here. I have the first Mortal Kombat at number 5.
A little low.
Yeah. But wait till you see the rest of my list. So yeah, this movie, iconic game. Still, I think it's one of those movies that doesn't really hold up, and I think that's why it's so low. At the time, loved it. Sequel, god awful. But it's so quotable. Those are $500 glasses. You dick, or you asshole, and then punches him in the nuts. Yeah. So the martial arts action wasn't great. That's one of the other reasons why it doesn't hold up. I think that the way they film those scenes nowadays is just so much more dynamic. But
I think it's a product of its time as well, which is part of the problem.
Yeah, but back in the day, I remember watching this movie and being like, okay, yeah, like I'll watch other. I'm not really that old. I was pretty young when this came out, but I remember being like, can't wait for the next movie about my favorite video games. And then I can't remember which came first, but I think I probably saw Street Fighter after this, and then that all that hope was gone. So yeah, it's a good movie. I still watch it from time to time. It's a guilty pleasure.
Oh, it's definitely a guilty pleasure movie.
Fun fact that it was Ray Park's first movie.
Oh, really? Was he? What was he?
He played I believe he was Scorpion or Sub-Zero. He played a bunch of different roles. He was always wearing a mask the whole time.
Makes sense.
Oh, he was on the ninjas.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Pretty much.
Nice.
Oh, well, that's great. He's one of my favorite parts about the prequels for Star Wars. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. Who's got number 4?
I'll go. I got you mentioned it already. Street Fighter. I think it's one of the cheesiest movies in the history of mankind. But Raul Julia just went so hammy that it made that movie really enjoyable, despite very few other good things about that movie. It was one of his. It was either I think his last or second to last acting role, because he died. I think it was of cancer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he did it up as hammy as he could do, and he stole every scene he was in, and he's one of the better villain roles of the 90s, I would say. Even though he wasn't necessarily good, he was memorable in the best possible way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I think he was. I think I don't know what time. When did the first Ace Ventura come out?
I would say 94, 95.
Something like that.
I think it was around the same time. I think he was probably the same levels of campy in this as like maybe Jim Carrey was.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think Raul Julia did it better. I think it's what Jim Carrey is like striving for in some of his roles.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think it may be what killed him. The thing about that movie is that they tried to. Lieutenant Guile is supposed to be an American guy, right? He's like a stereotypical Marine.
French.
And Jean-Claude Van Damme,
wow. Yeah.
Isn't he Belgian?
I think. Well, I know Van Damme's from Belgium, but
that's
I
what I
don't
mean.
know if his character was supposed to be.
I'm pretty sure Guile's American, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be like the uber American.
Yeah.
He flexes and he got that American flag on there, and that was really cool.
Yeah, which makes no sense. But
he didn't have the mohawk either, so that was disturbing.
He doesn't have a mohawk. He has a flat top. What's wrong with that? He's in the Marines.
It looks like a mohawk.
Just a crazy flat top.
But yeah, that's one of those movies that I would watch on TBS on a Saturday afternoon over and over and over again. I remember Chun-Li was actually cool. Trying to blank on the actress's name, but she was Mulan.
Right.
What is her name? We'll look that up. But yeah, so my did you do your number 4, Jay?
Ming-Na Wen is her name.
Oh yeah, Ming-Na Wen. Good job.
Yeah. My number 4, I have not done my number 4 yet. It's my turn.
Now's the time.
4. Okay.
Now's the time. Perfect segue.
Checking.
Well-oiled machine.
We're so
Machine?
well-oiled. Machine. My number 4 is Warcraft.
Nerd.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm kind of a nerd. I love playing World of Warcraft. I didn't play the strategy versions of actual, Warcraft. But the lore, it's just always caught me. It's just been I think it's just a fun story. And I think they did a pretty good job. I feel like it kind of got a bum rap. I think a lot of its marketing was, they lost a lot in their marketing of that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, had they'd done a little better, maybe it been released at a different time, it probably would have done a lot more. Well, so you get, I can't remember his name, the actor from Vikings. He played a great character. And it's funny because I say I like the lore. I mean, I like the lore as far as, generally, but I don't know all the details, so I can't remember his name. And I think the CG in that was pretty awesome. You got to see orcs, you got to see elves, you got to see griffins, and all the different cool stuff that I'm used to seeing in the actual game.
Mm-hmm.
So
for me, that was just
Lord of the Rings.
I was gonna say Lord of the Rings. It sounds a lot like a worse Lord of the Rings.
Because it's not a video game movie, Bobby. God damn it! Just kidding.
Well, I mean,
you walked right into that one.
Video game.
Got me.
There's video games we could rate next time. Lord of the Rings is actually pretty awesome.
Yeah, it actually is. Yeah, I never saw Warcraft. I kind of wanted to, but then you guys went without me, so now it's on my do not watch list.
I don't remember
for
that.
the end of time. We weren't that close yet. I barely liked you.
Okay.
So my number
Played
4.
so much.
You're welcome. My number 4 is Tomb Raider. Which one? You ask?
2018.
Yes. Good call.
Okay, good.
Just wait. Just you wait, Jay. So yeah, this movie is it's incredibly it's bland, but has some cool stuff in it. I like that Walton Goggins is in it. He's unfortunately they don't really let him get to be himself, like the type of characters that he plays. He feels very almost weighed down by the role he's playing, but still pretty cool stuff going on in the movie. I like how have you guys seen it?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, dang it, Bobby. Plug your ears for a minute, because I'm about to get into spoilers. There's
the spoilers.
yeah, exactly. There's like supernatural stuff, or what appears to be supernatural stuff happening, and I'll try not to spoil too much of it, but essentially it gets explained away by a certain more like a mechanical or like physical reason why this stuff is happening. And so I thought that was kind of cool how they took the supernatural stuff from the Tomb Raider games and made it more grounded as if it could happen in real life, which was really nice. Alicia Vikander she's pretty good. I think again the script kind of lets her down because I think she's a really, really good actor. I was a little bit worried about her casting as well because she's a really small girl. But they don't do a lot to make that really matter in the movie. There's the one scene where she's jumping off the boat that was in the trailers. It's a little weird, but other than that, everything for the most part makes sense. So yeah, it's a pretty cool movie. I recommend it. It's not mind blowing or anything, but in terms of video game movies, it's up there. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I concur.
That's another movie that just got away from me, despite wanting to see it because of Walton Goggins. But I think eventually I'll just probably catch it, on TV one day and just make sure I watch it. But I didn't hear a lot of very good things, which is why I didn't actually go see it, I think.
How did you not hear good things? It has like a 53 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah,
that's like a 90 for video game movies, right?
Yeah,
pretty
much.
Video game movies.
On Rotten Tomatoes, it's number 3 all time. So just let's leave that for reference.
Oh yikes!
Yeah.
Was that your number 4 or number 3?
Yeah, that was my 4.
4. Jay, you already did yours. So I'm going to go into my number 3. We've already talked about it a little bit. Mortal Kombat. I think part of the thing is seeing it as a kid and having the nostalgia for it, and then playing the video game. It was one of my first Super Nintendo video games, and I just think the memories I have of it make me actually love it quite a bit. I know it's not a good movie, but there's so much good action in those movies. Even if it doesn't necessarily hold up at the time, it was amazing to watch. It was so much fun, and I love Scorpion. I love Sub-Zero. This is one of the first movies I rooted for the villains over the good guys, and that's not really what I do. So it's quite unique for me.
You know what we didn't mention about that movie though? When it was my turn, was the soundtrack. The soundtrack is so
Mortal
cool.
Kombat!
At the time that movie came out, and I remember this very vividly because I was in martial arts at the time, and so we used to listen to that when we were doing our workouts and stuff. And
That's
the
awesome.
soundtrack came out, I think a little bit before the movie did. So we had the cassette. That's how old I am. We had the cassette of it that we would listen to, and then I eventually got a copy of my own. But we all, like a group of us that were in martial arts together, went to see this movie in the theaters, and it was like almost like it was with the school. It was with my dojo. Basically, we all went. It was like this cool event we did. But yeah, that just brought it back because you mentioned being a kid and how nostalgic it was. That the soundtrack is like it lives with me. You know, it's so cool. It amps you up. So that was like a big thing in the movie that I really liked.
That's a badass workout song too. It's just like such a pump up song.
Yeah, it really is.
It's not just one song. There's like 12.
I'm thinking of
Different versions or remixes of it.
There's two. One of the songs is a remix as well. Yeah, so it's like the first song and the last song are the same. Essentially.
Funny thing is, more guff heading my way.
Oh no!
Oh my god!
It's not even on my list. Mortal Kombat's not even on my list, and I feel kind of bad.
What are you doing here, then?
I think it's because I have so many bad memories of being just totally, getting my ass kicked at that game.
Is it because you were
when I did it?
you were already an adult? Is that why, Jay? Because you were
like
24?
This is when Mortal Kombat X came out, and I went over to you guys' house and kicked all your asses over and over again.
You had showed no mercy. I'm like, this is the first time I played
you
a game.
guys, it's me.
I don't play games against Kevin like that because he's been ruthless since we were kids at these games. He knows how to do everything, won't tell me how to do. He's like, you figure it out. I'd figure it out. I'm like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
My little brother would always
communist?
get me wedged up. This is before you could go into the next room and the thing would change and you get up against the wall. You got up against the edge of the screen and you uppercut you or you keep low kicking somebody and they can't do anything about it and you just whittle away your life. I got so pissed. I never played that game since until we played Mortal Kombat 10 and Kevin decided to kick my ass.
Yeah. Okay, so that's why you don't have Mortal Kombat on your list at number 3, I presume. So what game did you like enough to have a movie here?
Resident Evil is at number 3.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, obviously the first one. Mila Jovovich. I've always had a thing for Mila ever since seeing her in The Fifth Element. But I think she did a great job.
Wait, was that before or after this?
That was
Fifth Element was way before this.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah. It's still campy. It's still cheesy. Obviously the Resident Evil storyline gets super complicated after everything after Resident Evil 3. The T virus mutates and becomes everything's sentient. Everything is more like a mutation. It's not really a zombie movie anymore. I felt like when you played Resident Evil 1, that was like the scariest game I had played since. So I was really looking forward to seeing this movie. And I thought they did a pretty good job with the zombies and just all the characters. And just going down into the hive underneath the mansion was really cool. And just seeing that laser grid chop that guy up into tiny little cubes.
Just dice them up, Julian style. Yeah,
Julian style. It was pretty cool. And then I liked how they led into Resident Evil 2. I think they did a pretty good job as far as video game movies go. I think it's pretty good. Obviously it led to a whole chain of movies that got progressively worse. They should have stopped a lot sooner, but I think it's been the most successful out of the video game movies. And that's why it's at number 3 for me.
I actually have at number 3. I have the same movie, Resident Evil. So I was quite surprised that you had it here. as far as its faithfulness to the actual games, I don't think it really connects very well. But it almost feels like a prequel.
It's a new character.
Yeah.
So it basically shouldn't count, is what you're trying to tell me?
No, because it's based. The characters that are in the game show up in the later movies, so it's in the same world.
Oh, so you could pick like the second movie, but the first one you shouldn't really pick.
Well, we did, so that's why we did.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a interesting movie. I think the horror is done really well. It's that, like you said, that laser grid scene is cool. I remember actually seeing that scene first before actually watching the whole movie. Because my friend had the movie and he's like, "Oh, check out this scene," and I remember watching it and being like, "I don't know if I want to watch this," and then ended up watching it maybe a year later, and it's really enjoyable. The rest of the series is pretty god awful, but you could tell, that scene is worth watching the movie for. But I think that the franchise kind of became just a paycheck for Mila and her husband, who is the director. I think that's kind of why they got a little lackluster, or very lackluster. But this one I think is as far as video game movies go, because it isn't. I don't think it's really a good movie, but against its competition, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
What do you got here, Bobby?
It's funny, just going back to that one. Well, I already did Mortal Kombat for 3, but just on Resident Evil, I watched it a couple times, like around when it first came out. I don't remember anything except for the scene with the grid. That's like the one thing that has stuck out in my mind about that movie. So it's like that was a really impactful scene. I feel like it was just like really just brutal and just memorable.
I remember being confused by the robot. I mean the computer girl. I can't remember her name now, but why she was locking everything down and stuff. What was that?
Was she with the White Queen? What's her name? I can't remember her name. Let me look it up.
Read something. But all right, update on this. That on us. Whatever. Bobby, what do you have it to?
All right, this one I've actually got. You mentioned another movie in not the series, but like a remake of it. Lara Croft Tomb Raider 1. I think Angelina Jolie played the role pretty well. It's I played the games as a kid, and I feel like she did the character justice for Lara Croft, except her boobs are round instead of cones,
polygons. Yeah.
So that's weird. But otherwise, like I think that movie was actually a fun movie. Like it had a good storyline. It had Jon Voight in it as her dad, which I thought was a really good addition. It had freaking James Bond was not necessarily the villain, but he was like. I don't even know what you call him.
He's a rascal.
But like he still liked Lara Croft, but he didn't want anything bad to happen to her. And I really liked his character. He's probably my favorite part of the movie. He's really charismatic and fun. The villain was Jorah Mormont, and I thought he was actually a pretty menacing villain.
It was actually Jorah? Wow.
Yeah, his name was Jorah Mormont.
Jorah Mormont.
Did he have the stone skin yet, or whatever?
No, the grayscale, no grayscale.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And I just really enjoyed the movie. I thought like her butler and like I don't even know what you call the other guy because he wasn't a butler. He was like
he was
what would you call him? Just like
a friend.
I guess a friend that like lived there and helped her with stuff. Maybe it could possibly be.
Or a Yoda life debt, probably.
Life debt. That's good. Indentured servant, possibly.
Yeah, could be.
Either way, I thought that the butler and the let's say the life debt guy. He was a lot of fun. They were both a lot of fun and just an enjoyable movie. Again, not good. None of these movies are actually good, but that was an enjoyable movie.
Just a quick update. I actually just looked up the character's name, and it is Life Debt Guy.
Oh, perfect.
So perfect.
That's helpful.
I'm actually. Go ahead.
Did you think it was cool to have Jon Voight in the movie because of the relation between him and Angelina, or just because you like Jon Voight?
I mean, I think Jon Voight's a good well-known actor, so he gives it a little bit of credibility. But I also do like the connection that he's her actual father. Yeah. So I think that does add some credence to it.
I think it's kind of sad though. It's probably the last time they actually probably spoke to each other.
Little known fact: George Costanza actually owned Jon Voight's car.
I've heard that.
But actually, Bobby, I'm actually very surprised you have this movie up here and not the newer one because. This one, by comparison, is much worse. But anyways, my number 2... My number 2 is Laura Croft Tomb Raider. Thanks for
Laura
stepping all
Croft?
over my joke. Thank you so much, Bobby. But yeah, I have the same movie at 2. I think that's a weird coincidence because I just had 3 with Jay and now 2 with you. That's pretty funny. But yeah, a lot of the same things that you said. I think that this movie is incredibly early 2000s. There's like techno music in every freaking scene. Stupid, like, they're trying to make it kind of seem like The Matrix, where she's in the very first scene where she's running on cables and stuff. And
man, that's
it is as if Indiana Jones was made in the early 2000s. That's what this movie would be. And it's just dumb fun. And Angelina Jolie, I think, is still really good in it, and she looked fantastic. She looked the part. Yeah, this is a stupid movie, but I dug it. What'd you have, Jay?
For me, I have Tomb Raider, 2018 though. Sorry, guys.
Oh, bummer.
This is a weird Tomb Raider fest going on.
I actually think this is probably the movie that was truest to the game, and I think it was done pretty well, pretty decently. Honestly, like I felt like I was watching the video game like cutscenes when I was watching this movie. A lot of the stuff where she's jumping across caverns, she's grabbing onto things, she's swinging on something, and it's not. It doesn't look like she's. On? I don't remember what she was swinging on, but I just felt like she's holding on for her life in all those scenes, and it's not like something that just really like she's amazing at. It's just something she had to do, and so it seemed like it was really cool. Like she just had to dig deep, and be the person that Lara Croft is, and I feel. Like I said, it was pretty beautiful. I don't want to say beautiful. It was a good-looking movie. Obviously, she's beautiful. I think that's what I was trying to say.
She's probably listening. Right
I don't remember.
I
don't remember a lot of the other characters in it. I just felt like I remember her, and it was cool because they have the myth behind the villain in the movie. Like I said, it just felt like it was. It followed the newest. I guess was it Rise of Tomb Raider game. It was almost like a pretty close rendition of that on film, and I enjoyed that game, and so I enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, that is a really good point. The thing that makes Indiana Jones so good and like Die Hard so good are that those characters they're not perfect. And they get their ass kicked, and she is for sure getting her ass kicked in that movie. Compare that to the 2000s version, or the early 2000s version with
she's kicking
Angelina Jolie. Yeah, right. She's perfect. She's basically Neo essentially. So I think that's an interesting transition just throughout the time that these movies have been made, because obviously in the 80s, but then everybody started getting a little bit better and like unbeatable as time went on in narratives, and I think we're kind of coming full circle where fans or viewers want to see people fail from time to time, and exactly, and overcome that
struggle.
Exactly. So good choice, Jay. Good points. Have anything to say about that one, Bobby?
I need to see it, but I've heard a lot of good things tonight about it, so I think I'll enjoy it when I see it.
Okay, sounds good. What do you got for number 1?
Number 1, I feel like this is bar none the best video game movie.
I think I'm gonna agree with you.
You know what it is?
Yeah.
It's shocking, right?
Yeah.
I've got Doom.
Oh wow.
Oh.
Doom. Okay, so first off, you have The Rock headlining this movie. This is, I would say, maybe a few years into his acting career, but like he was still such a big time name. I didn't know who Carl Urban was before this movie, but I've loved him ever since this movie. You had what's her name from Gone Girl? I'm drawing a blank on her name.
Rosamund Pike.
Rosamund Pike. She wasn't that good in it, but it's also the first time that I saw her in a movie. She got much better after the movie, but I still kind of enjoyed her in the movie. Just a lot of fun stuff in the movie. You had like weird side characters. You had like The Rock's acting wasn't good, but I just enjoyed seeing him kick ass. I just enjoyed like the squad of Marines or whatever they were just kill all these monsters and then eventually start turning on each other. It was just a fun action movie, is what it was.
Yeah. Sorry. I think it's the first time we actually see Rock actually act out a whole script too, not just have one word.
Yeah, because up until that point, I think he didn't he do Scorpion King first?
Oh yeah, but that movie was pretty bad. He did the Scorpion King. I think he did the Rundown before this
Oh,
Oh,
too.
okay.
okay.
But I
Well, then I
mean,
take that back.
he
But he was
had
great in the
more
rundown.
range, I think, in this movie. Or I don't know. I did like him in the
Well,
Rundown a
he
lot.
played out of type at
Right,
the
he
end
was
of the movie.
yeah. Spoilers. He
Yeah,
became the villain at the end.
yeah. So I thought that was a nice touch for sure.
Hmm.
What were you gonna say, Jay?
Oh, I lost my track.
Okay.
So go ahead.
All right. Well, okay, I'll just go with my number one then. But actually, first, Bobby, I'm surprised you have this on your number one because this movie is really, really bad. But also at number one, I have Doom. It's a... Yes, I got to do the
I
joke.
didn't ruin that one.
Nope, you didn't. So yeah, this movie is just it's dumb. It's so dumb, but it's like really fun dumb because it's like one of those stereotypical movies where you have the ensemble cast and each one's getting picked off as the script goes along, and you're like, and you don't get to really see, you don't get a good look at the monster until until kind of late in the movie, and then spoiler alert, the twist is that the monster was there the whole time in The Rock, because humans are the real monsters. So so yeah, like it's really cool stuff. And Carl Urban, you guys know I love Carl Urban. I think he should play every single character in every movie.
He should be Batman.
He was my vote for Batman before Batfleck was cast.
That was my vote too.
So yeah, there's a lot of cool things. I think I'm not 100% sure about the backstory of the video game, but the fact that there's like a portal to Mars and stuff, and we built a research center up there, and then started nefariously researching super soldier serums or whatever. I think is a cool backstory, and them stumbling on that is interesting as a result of the disaster that's going on there, and lots of really cool gore. It's an exciting movie because that that kind of stuff, like the what was his name? The big black guy was like, his name was Tank, I think.
Oh man,
The character.
see, there was Reaper, who was Carl Urban. That's the only name I actually remember.
Yeah, yeah, but that guy just like his fist fight with the giant monster was like cool because you're kind of like, dude, this guy's jacked. He could beat this thing up, and of course he doesn't. But it was like it was a really cool toe to toe going on there. And then obviously he's smarter because he's human, so he like tries some tricks trying to electrocute the thing and all that. Really cool. Yeah, it's an exciting movie. I really like it.
Jay,
Yeah.
what do you have at number one?
Well, I'm gonna go back to Doom for a little bit, and we always don't mention the whole cool scene where Carl Urban takes the actual sermon and it goes to first person.
First person scene. That is a badass
And
scene.
I mean, I know it's kind
Innovative.
of cheesy, but it was a lot of fun. And they did it again with
Hardcore Henry.
Hardcore Henry,
Yeah.
which was a little over the top because it's almost like Steadicam, and you kind of almost get motion sickness. But I think Doom actually did it better, I believe.
Well, I think in Hardcore Henry it may have just been overload, just too much of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was cool for a quick little scene. Best part is when the one monster is going to try and hit him with an axe, and he shoots his arm off, and the axe hits him in the head, his own head.
It just drops.
It's not even physically possible, but it happens in Doom.
Yep. Okay.
Maybe it's a Mars thing. I don't know.
It
It's
must
probably
be.
a Mars thing.
Yeah, the gravity's different.
The Mars thing.
Exactly. So what do you got,
My
Jay?
number one is Rampage. I don't know if you guys have seen this. I
have.
love the video game. The video game was so much fun. Just climbing up buildings, eating people out of their windows, and smashing buildings down. I felt like this was probably the most fun movie out of them. You get the cool mutations and all the giant creatures. You get, I can't remember the gorilla's name, but I think that was really cool that the gorilla was the good guy. He's kind of like a nice King Kong. And I feel like The Rock and just this giant gorilla made a pretty good team. Like I said, it was just more of nostalgia, me having more fun with this game. And I think, the story was fine. The story was good. Almost like a Godzilla and a video game put together. So it was really cool for me.
Would you say it's kind of like a buddy cop movie with The Rock and the Gorilla?
Not really until the end. Obviously, I don't know if anyone's seen it, and it's still kind of, I don't know if it's fresh enough for us to do spoilers. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Warning, spoiler warning. Go ahead.
Spoiler warning. Obviously, someone's trying to get control of these creatures. I'm not going to say how they come to exist, but there's a way to control them. And so for a while, the big gorilla is just causing destruction. and he's not on the Rock's side. But in the end, they end up being teaming together, and then they end up taking on the rest of the monsters and winning, and it's pretty fun. It's pretty cool.
I think that the only reason that I didn't have this movie on my list is because I completely forgot about it. But and I don't know what that says about the movie. But one thing that but I didn't see it in theaters. I ended up seeing it later on HBO or something. But I didn't want to see it in theaters because they spoiled the crocodile monster in the trailer, and I was like, man, that would have been so cool if they saved that. We could have known about the wolf and the gorilla. That would have been fine. But then that would have been such a cool reveal in the movie. But
like, where's Iggy? And it's like, oh, I guess he's not in this.
Yeah, exactly. But The Rock is charismatic and charming as he usually is. So he's interesting to watch. I love Jeffrey Dean Morgan. He's really good.
Oh, he's so great.
Yeah, he's basically Negan in this movie. He's got that that weird swagger where you're just kind of like you're like a douche, but I like it.
I mean, he's been like that since Watchmen.
Exactly.
You know, he's just like, as long as I've known who he is, he's been like that.
Yeah, that's probably why he gets typecasted in these types of roles, whereas like it's an overconfident, dickish guy who isn't necessarily evil. That's with the exception of Negan, he was for sure evil.
Right.
But yeah, I really liked him in that movie. Really good.
Yeah, and I loved him in Losers too. But I mean, I don't think he was a dick in Losers. He was just
he was more the hero, but like he still had a bit of that swagger. So I definitely get where you're coming from.
Well, that was one of his that might have been like his first movie, right? His first like full role. So it may have been that he wasn't able to shine yet.
Mm-hmm.
He's on the Supernatural TV show, I think.
That's right. Yeah, he was like really? the main character's dad.
Yeah, he was a dad.
He was on there.
Interesting.
Yeah, but as far as movies, the first movies I ever saw him in must have been Losers or Watchmen, depending on which one came out first.
So yeah, that is my number one. And watchability for me, it's you guys know me, I like watching bad movies, but this one wasn't bad, so I'm gonna watch it over and over again.
Okay, so yeah, I think
Fair
we
enough.
should probably wrap things up pretty quickly here, but just real quick, anybody have a problem with any movie that you have on this list, or do you have a problem with anything on my list, or
I have a problem with Jay excluding Mortal Kombat, and I feel like that's a travesty because it's like the grandfather of I'd say it's like the granddaddy of them all for
it is not.
I feel like it is.
Super Mario is like Mario Brothers is the great.
Oh yeah,
that movie is complete garbage.
None of us had it on our list.
Okay,
I wonder why.
Next week, join us for the top 5 worst video game movies, and I imagine all these movies will be on this list. And just to wrap everything up, I think that Jay does deserve all the guff you have to give him.
Give me the guff.
So go ahead and leave your guff in the comments. Let us know what you agreed with, what you disagreed with. And we'll see you next week or some other time. It's real confusing.
It's not clear, but thanks for riding the wave.
Ride that wave, baby. See you guys next time.
Drop down and get pitted.
Tread the nar.
So pitted.
Bye.
Bye.